Hi everybody, this is Matt. Let's talk about firearm safety, specifically accidental and negligent discharges. Now thankfully, in my 50 plus years on the planet, I have never experienced an AD or ND with a handgun, but I have seen it. And I've seen it with a long gun. It's not pretty when it happens. So why do these things happen? Normally it's because we have violated at least one of the rules of firearm safety. First rule, always assume that the weapon is loaded. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you just cleaned it. Until verified, always assume that that weapon is loaded. Next one, never point this weapon at anything that you're not willing to destroy. That means you don't play around with it in the house. You're not pointing it at somebody, making the assumption that it's unloaded. Number three, you never put your finger on the trigger until you have your target in the sights and you got that sight picture. That's the only time that you put your finger on that trigger. Number four, not only should you be aware of the target, but you need to be aware of what's beyond it. So if you're at the range, you want to make sure that there's a berm back there. You also want to make certain that there's not somebody back there setting up a target or scooping up brass or anything like that. If you're out hunting, is there people, other hunters out there? How about livestock? How about farm machinery, houses? We need to be aware of that. In a self-defense situation, you might be in a situation where you cannot engage your attacker with a weapon because there's people right there. There's a crowd. It happens. So when it comes to the different types of weapon systems that you have for concealed carry, or if you are just a handgun pistol aficionado, with a revolver, when I carried this as a law enforcement officer, I always felt very safe and secure with it. Never really worried too much about having an accidental discharge of the weapon, just simply because of the design elements of it. Usually, the only way that this thing is going to go off is if I do that, which takes about 13 pounds of pressure on this case. Now, if I had it cocked back into single action, it's just going to take about 3 pounds and it breaks. So accidentally, is this going to go off? No. Now, carrying semi-auto, on the other hand, especially with the older 1911s, I did have some concern, and I still will have some concern with the 1911 to this day, especially with the older ones, and that is inertia. Because if dropped, especially with the older models, the firing pin could go forward and strike the primer, and the gun goes boom. With some of the more modern polymer type pistols, like the Glocks, the M&Ps, things like that. Again, safety check. What can happen? Well, the safety can be defeated, and it can just by a string, a piece of clothing getting caught up, and then suddenly, boom. But how can an accident happen at home? Well, sometimes when you're cleaning. Because what happens when you go to clean a Glock? In order to get this slide off of here, what do you have to do? You have to do that. If you've gone to the range and it's always been your practice to make sure that the gun is completely empty before you put it back in the box and you take it home, and you're going under the assumption that it's clear, but there's something in that chamber and it goes bang, it could have all kinds of bad consequences. So always assume that it's loaded. Now, from personal experience, I can tell you that there's one time at a range where a weapon was given to me and it's like, it's not loaded. There's nothing in the magazine. I looked at it, trigger's in that position. I look at it a little bit more and I'm thinking, you know what? That indicator looks like it's sticking out there. Let me just verify. And whoop, out came a round. So can it happen? Yes, it does. Use a little bit of common sense, a little bit of good judgment. Never trust the weapon, except trust it to always be loaded. A little bit of that goes a long way to safety. So until next time, everybody out there, have a good one. Be safe.